Jurassic, the most famous period of the dinosaurs. It lasted from about 201 to 145 million years ago. So why is it that we know so much about this time period? Well, the answer is simple. It's because of the rocks. You see, during the Jurassic, there were huge volcanic eruptions in what is today the western United States. And these eruptions created massive outpourings of lava and ash that spread across the whole continent. Now, over millions of years, these solidified into a layer of rock called basalt. And this layer is so thick in some places that it's literally hundreds of feet tall. And because this rock is so widespread, it's allowed geologists to correlate rock layers across the entire western U.S. and to define the beginning and end of the Jurassic with great accuracy. The Jurassic is divided into three epochs: the early Jurassic, the middle Jurassic, and the late Jurassic. At the beginning of the Jurassic, the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart. And by the end of the Jurassic, the Atlantic Ocean had formed and the continents as we know them today were pretty much established. So because we know the dates of these events, we can say that the early Jurassic took place from about 201 to 190 million years ago, the middle Jurassic from 190 to 174 million years ago, and the late Jurassic from 174 to 145 million years ago. So what was life like during the Jurassic? Well, let's start with the climate. During the Jurassic, the Earth was much warmer than it is today. There were no ice caps, and the polar regions were relatively warm as well. In fact, dinosaurs probably would have been quite comfortable living in Florida today. But don't think that the Jurassic was like a big tropical swamp. While it was true that there were lots of trees and plants, there were also large seasonal changes. In the winter, the higher latitudes experienced periods of darkness that lasted for months. So while the Jurassic was indeed warm overall, there were still very cold winters at higher latitudes. Okay, now let's talk about animals. The big news during the Jurassic was the rise of the sauropods. These were the biggest dinosaurs of all time, like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus. They were so tall that they literally had to take their food in small bites so they wouldn't swallow too much air along with it. The other big dinosaurs of the Jurassic were the ceratopsians, the horned dinosaurs. The most famous of these was, of course, the Triceratops, but there were many others as well. These dinosaurs were perfectly adapted for the dense forests of the Jurassic. They had strong horns and frills that allowed them to fight off predators like the mighty Allosaurus. But not all was rosy during the Jurassic. Towards the end of the period, a mass extinction event occurred. Perhaps you've heard of it. The mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous. The asteroid, the meteor, the impact, the non-avian dinosaurs going extinct, 75% of all species disappearing. Well, it turns out that this wasn't the first mass extinction event. In fact, it was the third. There was one at the end of the Ordovician, another at the end of the Permian, and then at the end of the Jurassic. We don't know exactly what caused the mass extinction at the end of the Jurassic, but it didn't help that at the beginning of the period, there was a massive volcanic eruption in what is today the Deccan Traps in India. These eruptions released huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which caused global warming. And right in the middle of this warming trend, an asteroid or comet slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. So we know that both asteroids and volcanoes were a major problem during the Jurassic. So maybe it's a good thing that we don't have either of those today. Or do we?